All right, we are live. How you guys doing?
Good.
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. We haven't had an episode. How long has it been, Thunder? Almost a year. So you guys are our first. We've had a very busy, very busy year. So we haven't really. We've been editing, but we haven't recorded anything new, until you guys. So thank you guys so much for coming on the show.
Okay. Honored to be here.
Absolutely. So yeah, welcome back, guys. My name is Muhammad Salad. I am the host of Goats Talk podcast, and today we have two amazing guests, two people that I definitely admire very much. Cluadia Kirak. Did I say your last name correctly?
You did.
There we go.
Yeah.
And JD Steele.
That's good.
Welcome, guys. So we usually just kind of jump into it. Kind of have a before we do that, let's thank our sponsors. This is our first time on the show as well that we have that we have sponsors. You guys want to taste it? Let me know what you think.
It's delicious.
You've already tasted it?
Yeah. It's really good.
There we go. So today our sponsor and our very first Ghost Talk sponsor. This is a big jug. This is a big jug. I don't know if I could finish all this. This episode is sponsored by Red Wolf Chai. Red Wolf Chai is a Minnesota-based chai company. They make the greatest chai of all time. I know that wolves eat goats, but this goat loves Red Wolf Chai. Thank you to Red Wolf Chai. Make sure you check them out at your local farmer's market and their Instagram. We'll link it somewhere. I don't remember what their Instagram is, but thank you guys for sponsoring this episode. If you want to sponsor an episode of Goats Talk, please email us at info@splitsecondproductions.com or shoot us a DM on our Instagram. Thank you. I feel like that was like an infomercial. Like those for 3 easy payments of $12.99, you can sponsor Goats Talk. So if we get into it, you know what's kind of funny is I feel like I know a lot about you two. That's what I feel like. But I also feel like there's a lot that I don't know. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So before we get into it, if you guys could give me like a brief introduction of who you are and what you do. You nose goes, whoever wants to go first.
Okay, I'll go first.
Awesome.
So 16 years ago, my husband and I moved to downtown Minneapolis. It was always our plan. We had met when we were students at the U, grad students, and always knew we'd come back. Raised our kids in a third-tier suburb, and as soon as our youngest son went off to college, boom, we were back. But what we discovered about downtown is, much as it's a really amazing place to live, nobody's from there.
Yeah.
Everybody's from somewhere else. So as you start to get to know some people and tell your stories, you realize that because of that, there's no central community. There's no tradition. There's no, what do we do? We always do this on such and such a date.
Yeah.
So took a couple years, but in talking to other friends, we decided that we needed to be the people that started community events.
Mm-hmm.
So we started a charity, which is known as Be That Neighbor.
Yes.
And the whole reason behind Be That Neighbor is when I was a kid growing up in the farm, if somebody was in trouble, everybody responded.
Mm-hmm.
But you responded the way that you could. So we didn't have much money, but maybe dad would milk their cows. Mom would take over food. I would babysit the kids. It's just what you did.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when we started Be That Neighbor, that really was the idea behind it, of being a good neighbor and trying to form community. So I won't get into all the things we do, but the first thing that we did was a friend of mine said, "You need music in this community."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Okay, what?" And he said, "You need a choir." So I went to McPhail the next day, and within about 30 seconds, the woman said, "What do you think about JD Steele?" I said, "Yeah, that'd be okay."
Yeah.
And she said, "Well, I think he'd be willing to help you start a community choir." So 9 years later, and 437 people on our roster,
Wow.
we have a community choir, and we sing everywhere. I mean, we've been at Super Bowl events when the Super Bowl was in town. We've been at the Ordway. We've been at Orchestra Hall a couple times. We're at the Capri 2 times a year. We sing in Apple Valley at a music festival, whatever you want to call it. We're everywhere. And one of the things about Be That Neighbor that's really vital is we all agreed with this. No participant ever pays any money. It's open to everyone. And so anyone can come and go. Anyone can come every single time, can come some of the time. But that goes through every single program. Never a cost to people to participate because those are the barriers that keep people from coming.
Absolutely. Those economic barriers, yeah.
And I'll just say one more thing. One other thing about our community in downtown is it tends to be a little homogeneous. And I'm a psychologist and I work a lot with traumatized kids who've been living on the street. And so one of the things that I do is always make sure there's other representation there. There are people that don't think they belong. I've had people that I've had to stand out on the street outside of the Guthrie and say, come in. And they'll tell me, I don't belong here. They won't let me in. No, I'll take you in. So a lot of that kind of community building.
Absolutely. And I have a deep connection as well.
You do?
With Be That Neighbor. In a lot of different ways. We'll definitely get into that. But JD, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm so excited to have spent so much quality time with Claudia. Number one.
Me too. Isn't she great?
She's fantastic.
She's amazing.
And I came here in 1976 to work for corporate America. I used to be a marketing rep for 3M Company.
Wow.
After school. I grew up in Gary, Indiana. And, my family moved here one by one after I did, and we started singing professionally in the late 70s. And then I left my job in the early 80s to pursue music full time. So since then, I've been traveling around the world. We've been on Broadway.
Wow.
I've recorded with a lot of artists around the country, and I've spent a lot of time traveling and working with choirs. I have 3 community choirs, including Mill City, also Capri Glee, which is a couple hundred people, and my McPhail Community Youth Choir.
Absolutely.
So I'm really fortunate that I get to work with so many talented people, particularly my kids. They inspire me on a continual basis. I've had the opportunity to spend a lot of time in East Africa, in Kenya, and Tanzania, and Zanzibar, and working with some kids in Nairobi in a slum called Kangemi. About 332 kids. We built a school there that opened in 2012.
Wow.
Started a nonprofit in New York City to raise the money to build the school there. And the group is called Shangali Mtoto wa Africa, which means Rejoice, Child of Africa. So I've really treasured and valued my time spent. I think I've been there 9 times, usually, and then I brought them to the States twice.
Wow.
For the International Children's Festival at the Ordway, and then we did a tour of New York City and upstate New York State back in 2015. So I've just really had so many wonderful opportunities. I've written 14 musicals for the stage.
Wow.
I've got a show opening right now. It's been on tour, a Greek play called Helen for 10,000 Things Theater. And I've written music for Guthrie plays as well as plays that have toured around the country. So I just have such a rich history with the musicians in this town as well as the theaters. So I have one foot in theater and I have one foot in music. And I've worked with all these amazing artists, including Prince and the Sounds of Blackness. And we've spent a lot of time together and sold a lot of records. So my thing is to be able to give back to our community and Be That Neighbor gives me an opportunity to give back, because Be That Neighbor is one of the few nonprofits that is cross-cultural, which involves the Somali community.
Yes.
And I spent a lot of time with the Somali community in East Lee while in Kenya. As a matter of fact, every time I went to Kenya, I would spend time in East Lee because I have dear friends there to this day. So that's part of my background.
Amazing. Thank you for see how he gave us just a tip of his resume. I appreciate that. He didn't give us the full thing. Thank you for that. JD has done a lot in his life, and so has Claudia. So thank you guys. They're being humble right now, but I appreciate that. I have so many questions for the both of you guys. I really do. I tend to get sidetracked, so bear with me. But first off, what was that like for you, JD, to go back to Africa? What was that experience like? Because if I'm not mistaken, you were born here in the States and raised here in the States. So did you feel a sense of reconnection? Did you feel a sense of, because that is your roots, but you are an American. So what was that experience like?
It was a fantastic experience. I mean, having traveled around the world, in every culture and community, I felt very accepted, particularly as an artist, because music is such a universal language.
Absolutely.
And, once they got to know me and I got to know them, there were just so many in common things that we shared between each other. And, they would ask me questions about, being in America. I remember one time, the first or second time I went, I remember them asking me, "Why do you call yourselves African American? Because you don't look African. You don't, what's African about you?" And then I would have to explain our history, which many didn't quite clearly know or weren't informed about. And then they informed me of many things that I didn't know. So it's a great experience.
Yeah, that's amazing. And then my other question, obviously, is what is Prince like?
Prince was a dear friend who I knew for decades. Spent a lot of time with him in the studio.
Yeah.
Did a lot of his albums. We toured together.
Wow.
And we spent a lot of times talking about the music business because we were all involved in record deals and publishing deals. So we both learned by fire, trial by fire, when you start to understand the business and the contracts.
Absolutely. I've heard that he has a great sense of humor. So
great sense of humor. We laughed a lot.
Yeah,
We had a lot of fun together, but we had a lot of wonderfully serious times together.
That's wonderful.
Which we were tackling industry issues.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. Shout out to them. Be That Neighbor. My connection with it, I know a lot of people obviously know me for my acting, and I just did a short film called Blight that was in New York for Dances with Films Film Festival, and has been accepted to a lot of other festivals. A very ambitious short film that I did with Barkat Abdurrahman, who was in Captain Phillips, and Marcus Hockner and Aaron and a bunch of great people that put Somali people and the Somali language and culture into science fiction, which has never been done before. And but my beginnings of my acting career was with Be That Neighbor. So you guys had a program where you took kids from the Cedar Riverside neighborhood and also from
Youth
Link as well. Shout out to Sam and Anthony and all of them. And you gave them an opportunity to, I felt the same way, to come into a building where you felt like, oh, I'm not supposed to go in there. Like, in here? No. I thought we were meeting somewhere else. And to really learn from really like from J-Dub and a lot of great people came in and gave us amazing lessons, and for us to construct a play from scratch to finish, and for us to practice acting and all of these different things. It's really and then I think for me to have that kind of on my resume, to be like, well, I did a play at the Guthrie. So for me, it felt like I can do anything. If I did a play at the biggest, I was like 15, 16, I think, when we did the first one.
Yeah.
I can go anywhere. I can do anything. I never felt like any door was too big for me to walk through or too small for me to walk through. That was an amazing experience, and that is the kind of work that you guys do right now and want to continue to do on a larger scale. And obviously my other connection with is with Coach Weber. So I had the opportunity to do a lot with Coach Trevor. She does a lot. We could sit here and talk about her for hours, but she's amazing. She's like my mom. But she has that program, the Cedar Riverside Athletic Association, where she introduces athletics, but also discipline and education and family and all these other great values. And you guys have a huge connection to that and helping her do what she does. So that is my kind of connection and to that, and I'm eternally grateful for that. I would say why. I would ask you guys, because both of you guys had this answer of community. Why is community important to you guys? Why is it necessary? Why should people care? Why don't we all just sit in our homes and just stay to ourselves? Why is there such an emphasis on community?
It's the answer to everything. I mean, when you talk about any problem that exists in the world, it can be solved at community. I mean, I think we're all really clear that big problems can't be solved by one person or one idea. But when you put people together and you actually trust each other enough to talk to each other, I mean, it was one of the greatest things when we started the Mill City Players and brought this group of kids who were currently living on the street and kids from Cedar Riverside. And the night before we started it, I got a call from a colleague who had heard about it and said, "Oh, I just heard about this project." And I went, "Yeah, it's pretty great, isn't it?" And she said, "No, they're going to kill each other." And I said, "Oops, I don't think so." And it didn't take more than a couple of times together when all of you were discovering commonalities.
Absolutely.
And talking about them. And you can't feel this way, I feel this way. And it was just amazing. And 9 years later, much of you are still in touch with each other, are still working together. Yes. Because what we also didn't see happening, but that happened is, with that was a group of adults who cared about you guys and who had your backs and were incredibly invested. That's what community does. That's what community's about. I mean, it's about safety. It's about problem solving. It's about feeling a sense of belonging. It's about taking care of those feelings of alienation.
Yeah.
You know, nobody gets me. You get to get in a group where people go, "Wait, no, I get you. I understand that." You know, and if you remember when you guys started having those discussions, I remember Cedar Riverside kids saying, "Yeah, but you're not from Cedar Riverside. You can't have those same problems."
Yeah.
And the kids from Youth Link were saying, no, you've never been
Where I've
homeless.
been. Yeah.
You don't get it. And you all did get it.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't know that without talking to each other.
Never. No, we definitely would not. And we've gained. I gained so much perspective. And the most rewarding thing was bringing my little sister Miski and my little brother Abdullahi along with me. And I've always done that. Like any opportunity that I get, I'm like, "Can my siblings come?" And everybody's like, "Sure, if you want to, bring them." And they were so young, but it helped them gain so much perspective about other people and the world. But you're absolutely right. Nobody can figure out a problem on their own. And humanity's voice is very quiet on its own. But when you sing together like a choir and when you do it together, I think that when you see a group of people singing together, like I saw last weekend, I really think it's one of the most incredible experiences that you can experience.
Can I add something to that? Because it's the question that I get most often when people say, "I'm kind of interested in joining the choir," and they say, "Yeah, but I can't sing." And I said, don't worry about that.
That's not,
Come,
yeah.
because this man will take all these ordinary voices and put us together, and wonderful music comes out.
Absolutely.
That's community.
Absolutely. And I actually came and joined you at what's the one? It's literally right here down the street at the Capri Theater. And I came and I was all shy and quiet and which I'm rarely not. And he was like, "Well, are you going to join us?" And I was like, "Well, I can't sing. I don't know what you talking about. I ain't never sang in my life." And he came and he said, "You told me to say da," and I said da, say do, do. He's like, "Oh, you great. You can sing. Stand over there." He's like, "Stand over there." And I was like, "Wow, okay. If you say so." If he said I can sing.
That's such a JD moment.
Yeah. He's like, "Say ah." I was like, "Ah." He's like, "Yep, go ahead. Stand right there. Join the group." And you talked about how the kids that you work with are one of the biggest parts of the work that you do. But music, I feel like, has given you so much opportunities in your life, and for you to turn around and inspire so much people. And you guys have the Sally Steele Birdsong Scholarship. Could tell me a little bit about that? Like, what is that? Who is it named after?
Well,
why is it important?
Before answering that, I want to respond to your community question.
Yes,
Because
absolutely.
having gone to college at Purdue University in the 70s, it was my first time meeting and interacting with students who came from Africa, some from West Africa, some from East Africa. And the African students and the black students did not communicate at all.
Yes. Yeah, that's
As
a
a matter
problem.
of fact, a lot of the African students were told by their parents when they came, stay away from those black students, because at that time we had gone through the civil rights movement, and there was a lot of, marching and protesting and trying to get civil rights.
Yeah.
But we never communicated with these African students. And I think that now, living in Minnesota, where we have probably the largest Somali population in the country, if I'm not mistaken, and every time I coalesce with Somali or East Africans here in Minnesota, and then they realize that I've been to East Africa so many times.
It's like
they
they
go,
get it.
"You've been? You have?"
Yeah.
And then it becomes an open communication, and then they start to wonder, okay, and they've said to me, I wish more black people would go to Africa so they can see what it's really like, which is very true.
Yes.
So when it comes to community and having an organization like Be That Neighbor, bringing communities together, I absolutely love it when I get to work with or relate to the African students and the young people that are African, and I get to share my stories of Africa, and it opens you up. So community is so important for us to inform each other and find that we have way more in common
Way more.
than we have differences.
Absolutely.
My students in the McPhail Community Youth Choir is a multicultural group, really very multicultural. And they get to share ideas. They fill me with optimism because I see the future through their eyes. And it gives me great optimism because they get along way better than we did in the 70s or in the 80s. And I can see change happening within them. So everything that we messed up in the 60s and 70s is going to be fixed by young people like yourself who are open-minded and progressive. So with McPhail Community Youth Choir, the Sally Steele Birdsong Scholarship is a fund, part of Be That Neighbor, that I'm honored that is named after my mother, who turns 90 years old on October 19th.
God bless her.
And we're having a big gathering for her to celebrate her 90th. But
Do we get an invite?
Oh, of course.
All right.
Of course. You
All
get
right.
an invite.
I'm gonna be there.
So my mother has 6 children, 17 grandchildren,
Wow.
29 great-grandchildren,
Wow.
and 4 great-great-grandchildren. So it's a huge legacy. So to be honored by Be That Neighbor to set up this scholarship fund allows us to have students get scholarships in order to take vocal lessons. And those vocal lessons are done with me at McPhail. And they get opportunities. I've had a couple singers sing at the Twins game.
Wow.
I had a singer sing at the Vikings first game this year.
Wow.
In front of 60,000 people. So they get an opportunity to develop their confidence. And I always tell them, I said, I love singing and dancing with you. But the first thing I want to know is, how's your academics? How are you?
Yeah. As a person, yeah.
Yeah, so I want to see them develop as young people into responsible and active global citizens. So singing helps them do that. Getting in front of an audience helps them do that. I've been singing since I was 5.
Yeah.
So my family and I had a singing group in Gary, Indiana when we were kids, and we became well known. So it was our family, and then there was the Jackson 5.
They're also from Gary, Indiana, right?
There was Denise Williams, the Blakely family. So all my life, I've been getting applause.
Yeah.
And so for me, it gave me confidence and a degree of esteem.
Yes.
I want my kids to get applause. I try to shine a light on them, and by them being involved in this scholarship program, it's amazing to see how confident they become as they grow and develop.
That's beautiful. That really is beautiful. And I agree with you with everything that Coach Trevor has done for me and my peers. It's never really about basketball. It's never really about acting. It's never really about track. All of these things, first and foremost, give you that confidence that so many kids are missing.
Absolutely.
I feel like nowadays, I have this almost tenacity and hard-headedness about the way that I go after things. I have no clue how to do some things. I will go and do it, or I'll figure it out. And that comes from, me being in the arts my entire life and working on something really hard, going and performing in front of a bunch of people, and then getting that applause and feeling, okay, well, as long as I work hard and I put my best foot forward and I'm genuine, I have gratitude. People will appreciate me for what I do, and I'll
Yes.
appreciate myself for what I do. And
Yes.
and that's confidence, and that's important. That goes beyond singing or basketball. Or you could take that and start a business. You could take that and raise a family. You could take that and do anything. But a lot of people don't really have that. And I know that, if I'm not mistaken, JD, you had something tragic happen when you were a kid, and music really helped you kind of get through that and help your family kind of get through that. What was that experience?
My
like for
father
you?
was killed by a drunk driver when I was a sophomore in college, and I'm the oldest of 6. So my brother Fred was at college with me.
Yeah.
But my sisters and my youngest brother were there when it happened, and it was in the middle of the day. A drunk driver literally drove up on our yard while he was kissing my mother goodbye and about to get in the car, and it slammed into the car and threw him 30 feet, and he died very shortly afterwards. So I had the opportunity to get to know my father better than the rest of my brothers and sisters, being the oldest.
Yeah.
He was such a great man. Yeah. And it threw me into a really dark place for a while. I had a hard time going back home from college, realizing that I lost my father, who was a great father, and he was the reason that we sing today is because of that side of the family. My uncles and aunts and my grandparents sang on the Steele side. Yeah. So I realized the great legacy that I have, that I live with, and have passed it on to my 4 children. Wow. And hopefully my 7 grandchildren will pick up on it also. But we have
grandchildren.
A huge family.
I thought you was like 40.
Yeah.
How old are you, JD?
I just told you I grew up in the 60s.
Okay.
You didn't do the math.
You look so young. The
you.
math wasn't, you know what I'm saying?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
But
Congrats on
that tragedy informed my life.
Wow. And it's one of those things where I think Cluadia as well, working with kids over at Youth Link and working with kids in Cedar Riverside, there's a lot of tragedies that do happen, and for a lot of people it doesn't. I always talk about how lucky and privileged that I am to have sports in my life and to have the arts in my life, because of, I really do think that if those things were not there, the tragedies that had happened to me in my life personally, I really do think it would have went a completely different way. Mm-hmm. A completely different way. And it's, in a way, it's almost a anchor that holds you down to reality. And sometimes some people don't have that, and they kind of just float away, right? So question for you, Cluadia. I know that you spoke a little bit earlier on your community at downtown Minneapolis, and why is it important to build a connection and a bridge between, and we've had a lot of conversations about this, but that downtown area is very close to Cedar Riverside, but there's not a lot of, now it's getting there, but there's not a lot of bridges, not a lot of connection. And that's not, some people like to spin it and do this and do that, but it's not because the people over in downtown hate the kids in Cedar Riverside, and it's not because the people in Cedar Riverside hate the people in downtown. Sometimes, especially now, as divided as this country is, that becomes the default. Whenever 2 people are disconnected, immediately it's like, oh, well, it's because so-and-so is this and that, But in reality, we have so much in common, and there's so much love out there in the world that a lot of it is just because there isn't that connection. So why do you think it's important for people of different backgrounds and people of different economic classes as well to connect with each other, get to know each other, build community together?
Well, maybe I can answer it in part by why I made a connection with Cedar Riverside. Mm-hmm. And it had to do with politics. Mm-hmm. And it had to do with a candidate who came through town and said that if he was elected, he was going to free Minneapolis from the scourge of the Somali Muslims.
Wow.
And
Off air, you gonna tell me who that is? Because I want. That's crazy.
you already know.
I already know who it is.
Yeah.
That was a direct quote.
That was a direct quote.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
that's wild.
I know. And I went to bed that night and said to my husband, I'm so embarrassed. I've been meaning to reach out to Cedar Riverside for so long, and I haven't done it. So I got up the next morning, made some calls, went over to Cedar Riverside and had a couple of meetings. And at both meetings, both people said, well, you have to talk to Coach Weber.
Coach Weber, yep.
You have to talk to Coach Weber.
Yep.
So Coach Weber and I had the third meeting, and she will tell you, within 10 minutes, we realized, oh my gosh, why have we not connected before this?
Yeah.
And why have we not worked together?
Yeah. Both of you guys have a background in education.
Oh, and it was just
working
boom.
with kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Think the same way, about kids.
Very similar. Yeah.
But the other answer that I got at Cedar Riverside of when I kept asking the question, how do we connect? What can I do? How can I persuade people to come to downtown? And the answer was consistent. You come here first.
Yeah.
So I spent the next 6 months going to events in Cedar Riverside. And I have to tell you, I've never been so welcomed by a community, so embraced by a community. Pretty soon I was walking into events and people were going, Claudia, come over here, sit. It was stunning. Then we started our programs, but I continued to bring adults from my community to your community, and everybody goes home with the same thing. Wow, I didn't know all this was here.
Yeah.
Wow, look at the vibrancy. Look at all these
The
shops.
talent,
Look
the
at
culture, the food.
so it's I think because I always go for the best answer, the nicest answer, but I think it's true. I think people just don't know.
Yeah.
And I think when you push them out of their comfort zone just a little bit, and my favorite is, well, will we be safe when we go over there?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be fine. we'll just absolutely be fine. And if not, I'll take on whoever's coming.
Yeah.
I'll 5'2" of me.
There you go.
I'll keep you safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an incredibly vibrant place.
It really is.
And people are shocked that they didn't know it was just a few blocks away. Because we kind of get in our little cocoon, you know, and somebody needs to bid you out.
It's that, but it's also the same thing that's going on with the North Side neighborhood, which is in the media, if it bleeds, it leads.
Absolutely.
So the only things that they talk about about the North Side neighborhood is watch out.
Absolutely.
You might this, you might that. So even for me, as a Somali kid growing up in the South Side of Minneapolis, I was told, don't ever go to the North Side. You have no business in the North Side, you know? But then I go to the Capri Theater and I go all these restaurants and I go to meet all these people. I'm like, this is exactly like my neighborhood. It's the exact same thing.
Yep.
So that's the problem, is that whenever something happens back home in Somalia or something violent happens regarding any Somali people, even though they're not from Cedar or they have nothing to do with Cedar, the news comes to Cedar and puts the buildings in the background and goes, well, today in Nairobi, Kenya, this and this. What does this have to do? I'll tell you a crazy story. One day I was playing football outside. I was like probably 15, 16, and maybe younger than that. And if you remember, there was a time when there was an incident that happened in Isli, in Kenya, actually. I don't know if it was Isli, but in Kenya with, I think, one of the malls, Two Rivers or something like that, where there was like a conflict. I don't want to say what it is, but a group of people that shall not be named, because my name is Mohammed. I don't want to get in trouble with the FBI or whatever, you know. They tend to do that. You'll be surprised. But they did that, and whatever incident happened, right? So the next day, there's these big black SUVs come into the Brian Coyle cul-de-sac, and we're playing football and we're having a great time, and we see people setting up cameras and all of that, and then we see like the well-known CNN, like the Anderson Cooper-esque CNN reporters that we recognize you standing there with the thing. So I'm like, I know you. So I go over there with kids. We're like, hey, what are you guys doing? Like, why do you guys? And they're like, oh, we're reporting on this incident that happened in Kenya. I'm like, ain't y'all based in Atlanta? Like, yeah. Why y'all, what y'all doing here? What does it have to do with, even as kids, we were confused. We were like, we ain't got nothing to do with the people over there. Mm-hmm. We over here, we just chilling. You see, it's peaceful over here. We just play football. But again, if it bleeds, it leads. And those buildings are symbols. They really are. They're huge. They're in the skyline. People see them all the time. So because of that, there is a tendency to kind of point to it and be like, well, you know, this is bad. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like JD too, you maybe because of you during the civil rights movement, there probably was a lot of that, which is like a lot of people were disconnected, but whenever they sat down together, they were like, oh, wait a minute, we're the same. And I feel like that wasn't, would you say that wasn't happening enough, that kind of connection, trying to build those connections?
You mean during the civil rights movement?
Yeah.
You know, I think that we were still trying to figure out who we were
Yeah.
as Black Americans,
Yeah.
and how we could succeed in a country that was obviously very racist towards us during
Very
those
against,
years,
very
that
against
still,
you.
still
Yeah.
exists.
Yes.
You know, from traveling around our globe, I was recently in India, where I've been working with East Indian artists and this East Indian dance company called Katha Dance Theater here in town, and I'm on my 4th project with them.
You seem to have a very interesting life. So next time you go on a trip, just let me know. I'll come with you. I'll bring my camera. We'll bring the crew and everything.
I am blessed to have a very
That's
interesting
beautiful.
life, and I'm
You
very
went
thankful.
from Kenya to India.
You
That's
know,
amazing.
because I got involved in that
Yes.
community, and going to Delhi and Khajuraho and Agra. I became very close friends with a lot of Hindi people, and I have found from traveling around the world that religion is one of the most divisive entities on
Absolutely.
the planet, without
Absolutely.
question. A lot of wars are fought because of religion. A lot of misunderstandings. I remember being in Tanzania, in Zanzibar, right out in the Indian Ocean, and I took my kids who were Christian from Shangri-La to do a workshop with some kids in Zanzibar. Well, what I didn't know was that Zanzibar was 92% Muslim.
Muslim, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So when I got there, I had to teach all these kids. So the first day, I was in a room where all the Muslim kids were on one side of the room and all the Christian kids were on another side of the room. And they weren't really talking to each other. They were just kind of looking at each other. And I had to create music or teach music that they all could relate to. So what I did is I just started making up music about love and
Yeah.
peace and harmony and joy. And by the 3rd day, these kids were all dancing and holding hands and singing together. And I had an epiphany, and I went, that's how the world needs to be.
Yes.
We need to come together on common ground
Yes.
instead of having missionaries coming to Muslim communities trying to
Convert,
them to
yeah,
Christianity.
and vice versa.
Yeah, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And I thought we can respect each other's religions
Definitely
and
can.
beliefs.
Yeah.
And it has to start with the kids because the adults are already too hardened to understand those things. But the kids, once you get them singing together and dancing together, then you're making a move. You're creating a movement of understanding and appreciating and respecting each other's differences in religion rather than fighting over each other's differences in religion.
Yeah, which is, man, it's really
crucial to me.
It's crucial. It is really sad to see that.
It's
That
sad
is
to see that. You know?
that is where we are. We're in. I know a lot of people like to talk about that and bring that up. I try to stay positive about my life and the things that I talk about, but we are in a very divisive time. But I would say we're in a very divisive time on the big screen. So I would say like the old school major players that have the airtime or whatever it may be are very divisive. So they make it seem like everybody in America, for example, is against each other, and everybody in around the world in the Middle East is against each other, and everybody's just fighting all the time, and there's conflict everywhere. When you look at the micro, though, you look at the people with the grassroots, you look at the people with the podcasts, you look at the people that are on the ground, there's a lot of community building going on. There's a lot of beautiful things that are happening. So I would recommend that people kind of unplug from that and go and talk to your neighbors. Talk to your neighbors, have conversations, have conversations. And, you know, I also believe that has been one of the most rewarding things in my life that has given me perspective. Growing up in the Cedar Riverside neighborhood, a lot of people, yes, it is the biggest concentration of Somali people, but a lot of people don't understand that so many different people with so many walks of life come through there. We had Stevie Wonder there playing the piano in our community center on a random Thursday afternoon. Like,
Wow.
we had Jesse Jackson come there on a random Saturday afternoon. That's the kind of neighborhood that I grew up in. There's a big community of metal, rock and roll kind of esque people that come there for the concerts or whatever it may be. We have conversations with them. There's so many. There's obviously a huge Hmong population that lives there. So growing up, my dad has always been somebody who just talks to anybody and everybody. That's the kind of person that he is. Whenever we're on the train, whenever we're on a walk, he sees a homeless person. Hey, how are you doing? What's your name? Where are you from? Oh, I'm from Somalia. Do you know Somalia? Yeah. He's kind of like an ambassador, but he's always so interested in other people's lives. What do you do for a living? Oh, you're a veterinarian. What is that? What did they? And he's always questioning and having conversation. I was never raised to kind of be closed off and be like, don't talk to these people. Or don't talk to these people. Don't go over here. I was always raised to be respectful and to be curious, and I think that has been a blessing for me, because as now I get older, I'm glad to know that I have that perspective where even people that outwardly say they hate me, I have no problem sitting down and having a conversation with them. Let's talk about it. That's always my response. You hate me? Great. Let's talk about it. Let's figure this out. Why do you hate me? Oh, because you think I hate Jesus? Well, by the way, Jesus is a prophet. I love Jesus and Jesus loves me. And then that makes people go, what? I didn't know that. And then now we're best friends.
The first thing I learned when I started working with people experiencing homelessness was from an outreach worker. And I said to him, how do I approach someone? And he said,
Yeah.
how about you walk up to him and say, hi, my name is Claudia. I don't think I know your name. And I said, well, it can't be that easy. And he said, but it is.
Yeah.
And you know what? It is. And when you walk up to someone with that perspective of, gee, I've seen you. There was a guy that was living in the park by our place this summer. And I walked up to him, told him my name and asked him his name and said, I see you here all the time. And he said, oh, I'm sorry. But your park is so nice. And I said, there's no problem.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know, that there's resources here that, we can help you. And he appreciated it. But it's treating people as people and
Yes.
seeing people.
Yes.
And like you said with your dad, having a conversation and maybe starting it. And you're right. Lots and lots of people I tell that story to say, oh, no, I'm not going to talk to those people. Well, why?
Yeah.
I tell my students all the time, when you're riding in the car and you see homeless people on the corners,
Yeah.
a lot of times they're waving at you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wave back.
At least.
Wait, just acknowledge
Acknowledge
that they're
them.
there.
Yes.
Look at your parents and notice how they react. They look away.
Yeah.
Don't be that. Just wave at them. You don't have to talk to them if you're in the car, and it makes them feel. It makes them feel like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm a human on this planet.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
It also makes you feel as if you've made a connection with someone.
Right, made a connection.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another friend told me to keep a bunch of protein bars in the car.
Yes.
And so when I'm waiting at a light, waving at somebody, I'll say,
Hand
do
them
you want a couple
bar.
protein bars?
Yeah. Yep.
It's a simple thing to do.
It's an amazing thing. And Claudia too, there's a trip. You remember when I went to Spain?
Yes.
And we always, for some reason, go back. Whenever we're having conversations, we go back to that experience that I had of Spain and learning about the history of that place. So Spain, before the Spanish Inquisition with Ferdinand and Isabella, it was ruled by Muslims for about 800 years. And the entire kind of idea of that trip was that taking kids from here who didn't know about the Islamic heritage and taking them to places where, so they go to Turkey, they go to Spain, and it was called Andalusia. And the thing that made me kind of go, wait, what? During that trip was shout out to what's the company called? IHIP, yes, but shout out to IHIP as well. But with Tariq, halal travels or halal trips or something, but he's a very interesting man. He was our guide. His name's Tariq, and he grew up in London, and he had that same experience. And he was like, I want to learn about my Islamic heritage. And because, of course, when you look on TV, again, you're just constantly told, oh, you Muslims, you're this, and you Muslims, you're that. And you're like, what? I don't know what's going on. I want to know about my heritage. So he drove down to Spain from the UK, and he was walking around and he was just seeing these ancient mosques and seeing the architecture and the camaraderie that happened, and it opened his eyes. And years later, it influenced him to start this company that does the same for kids. And he does an amazing job. But what he told us was that the Spanish Muslim Empire was the beginning of the West. So when in the media or in conversations, when people try to separate Islam or black Muslims or African Muslims or Middle Eastern Muslims from the West, remind them that the Spanish Empire was the essence and the beginning of the West. And that made me go, how and why? And then throughout the trip, they gave us examples and they showed us. They took us to where Christopher Columbus sailed out of to come to the Americas, and how he took Moriscos, or Moors as they were called, and how he really didn't know how to sail the seas, but that Muslims were coming to the Americas years before him, and how they brought him here, how they were doing cataract surgery, and how the biggest philosophers and psychologists that influence current today psychology, and the guy that started algorithms that allow for us to have our phones and computers, and the guys that all of these things, they were the first people to do cataract surgery, first people to do cesarean C-sections, all of these things. And one of the things that really I connected to was the idea and the way that at that time in Spain, that was a place where people came together. And it was one of the first times in history that Jews, Muslims, and Christians lived in peace together. And it was the first time that conversations were being had and were being recorded that was never really done before in peace. That they were sitting in circles and talking about, well, what is your God? Or what is it? No, this is the same God, but what does your religion say? Oh, my religion says this. What about you? What do you think about the world? Well, I think this. Okay, great. I enjoyed the tea. You have a great day. And they went to their homes and they saw each other in the market, and everything was peaceful. And for me, I realized that for some reason it left like a bug in me of like, if they could do it, we could do it. If it's possible, it can happen, and that we can make it happen, you know? So, but that always, every time we have conversations about community, it just brings me back to learning about that and how beautiful and powerful it was. If we can get back to why we're here, tell me about the benefit concert. What is it? And if the both of you guys can kind of touch on, why is it important?
So October 24th at 7 o'clock, we are going to have a benefit concert featuring the Steeles, which is, if you haven't ever seen the Steeles perform,
magical experience.
Magical experience.
Yes.
We're so honored that they're going to be there. I mentioned that everything we do is free to participants. Mm-hmm. And we have an all-volunteer board.
Yes.
So all of us on the board do all of this work for no money.
So, by the way, please touch on what you guys, it's not only the choir, you guys have yoga classes. We
have yoga in the park. We have Hope 612, which you're involved in, writing. A number of kids from the first play that we put together are now writing a script about their experiences growing up in Minneapolis. The Sally Steele Bird song, what am I forgetting?
Jennifer's.
Groundworks in Cedar Riverside.
Yes,
the landscaping.
Which is a landscaping opportunity. Coach Trevor started with a bunch of kids in the Cedar Riverside neighborhood. Some of them being kids who are in long-term recovery.
Yes.
And she's teaching them how to work with their hands and how to beautify their own community. And they're doing a phenomenal job. So check out Cedar Riverside Athletic Association. Check out Coach Trevor. Check out Groundworks. Always going to plug them and try to tell people about them for sure.
So the concert is to raise money so that we can do our work. Mm-hmm. As I said, nobody ever gets charged anything that participates in this, but it costs. It costs to get the best professionals to do the work that we're doing. So we need your help to do that. the tickets are tax deductible. So there's that good thing too.
So you could write it off at the
You
end of the
can
year.
write it off on your
Yes.
taxes, and you're helping an amazing, amazing cause. Many amazing causes.
Absolutely. And then how many events, this was, when you told me this too, I really was like, that is amazing, because there's not a lot of organizations that are working this hard. But how many events do you guys have a year where people can come and join, and not with the choir, but in like
Just in general?
Yeah. I think you said like 2 a month or something.
Oh, at least. At
Yeah.
least. I mean,
Wow.
we have a number of events in the summertime
Yes.
in the park. We brought in an aerialist this summer.
Yes.
We did an aerial act. We have puppet theaters that come in.
Yes.
Yeah, we really respond. You know, I'm back to the farm girl.
Yeah.
We respond to things that we think are not getting done
Yes.
and need to get done.
Yes. Filling those holes that exist in within our community.
And creating community.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. Well, thank you guys so much. I think we covered it. There's so much more that we can definitely touch on, but maybe we might have to do a part 2.
Well, you're amazing, Muhammad.
Thank you,
thank you.
Muhammad.
You
This
have
has been just
You have
great.
a wonderful light around you.
Thank
you.
And you and your
Thank you.
partner give me even more optimism, because it's like, man, these brothers are going to make a huge difference in the world.
I hope
And
so.
That's what
already
you're
are.
doing,
I
and
hope so.
you're already making a difference, and you're young, and you're fresh, and you're building your family.
Yes.
That's
yes.
phenomenally inspiring to me.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Just I want to add too, when people say, why do you do the work that you do? It's because I get hope from it.
Yeah.
And because I get energy from it. My husband, who is the very, very best in the whole world, will say to me sometimes, you're spreading yourself too thin. And I said, you watch me when I come home. If I'm not energized, tell me.
Yeah.
And I am.
Yeah.
Every time.
That's beautiful.
It is beautiful.
That is so beautiful. And I want to also show my gratitude to the both of you guys as well. Thank you guys for continuing to do this work, and for giving back, and for helping the younger generation. I think that forever, I really do think the essence of the continuation of humanity and the growth of humanity is not to call you guys old, because you guys are definitely not old, but
It's okay.
It's the older. I don't want to be
We
rude,
know.
you know.
We're gratefully old.
Very gratefully.
It is. It's definitely that connection between the older generation
It
and
is.
the younger generation. When the elders, I've heard this before too a few times. I didn't come up with this great quote, but when the elders stop listening to the youth, the elders fail.
That's true.
They'll disappear. And when the youth stop listening to the elders, they'll lose their course. They won't know where to go, you know. So I try to make that a cornerstone of my life. Anybody that's older than me that has any advice, I'll listen. I'll take it, because you've been through things and seen things and experienced things that I just haven't done yet. I've only been here for 24 years, so I need all the help that I can get, you know. But
And then you'll pass it on.
exactly, and I try to
keep
do that.
passing
I
on.
try to do that with the younger kids in Cedar Riverside. Give them the best advice that I can give them, and tell them how it is. But that's a real thing. So I appreciate you guys for doing that, and I appreciate the work that you guys do. Where can people buy their tickets?
Eventbrite. Go to eventbrite.com and just search Be That Neighbor, and it will come up.
Awesome.
And,
And then
get those tickets.
make sure that you follow Be That Neighbor on Instagram, on TikTok. They're also on Facebook.
On Facebook.
If you go to bethatneighbor.com,
.org.
you could check out their website. And then on Eventbrite, make sure that you get those tickets. The event is on October 24th, 7
o'clock.
At McPhail Center for
at the
Music.
McPhail Center for Music. 7 o'clock, October 24th at the McPhail Center for Music. If anything, I myself, with all the work that I do, you guys know me, you guys see me, I don't have to tell or explain. I'm a product of Be That Neighbor. I am who I am today because of Be That Neighbor. So please, please, please support them. And you get to see the immensely talented Steele family perform, and the choir as well. And it's such a magical experience, and they have such beautiful music, and it's such beautiful performance. So please come through. Make sure that you participate. Thank you guys so much
Thank
Thank
you,
you for
Mohammed.
having us.
for
Mohammed.
Really
joining
appreciate
us.
it.
This has been Ghost Talk.
Thank you too.
Thank
Again,
you.
we're sponsored by Red Wolf Chai. Shout out to Red Wolf Chai. Check them out on Instagram. And if you want to sponsor an episode, DM us on Goats Talk Pod on our Instagram, or shoot us an email